which is inside the walls, if you can see where I'm pointing right here.
Mm-hmm.
So because they lived inside the walls, they were able to get in and out of the gates whenever they wanted because that's where they lived. And he was able to take me in to ostensibly, you know, visit his school and have lunch with them. But then he also took me on a tour all the way around the Vatican Gardens, and I got to see tons of stuff. The Casa Santa Marta is this little orange square here. That's where the Pope lives, and that's where he does his daily mass.
That's where Pope Francis lives.
Yes, that's where Pope Francis lives. The popes before Pope Francis lived in the Apostolic Palace, which is over here. And whenever the Pope does like the Sunday Angelus address, he's speaking from one of the windows in the papal apartments up here. So even though Pope Francis lived here, he would still do the Sunday addresses up here where he's overlooking St. Peter's Square. But yeah, Pope Francis lives in here, and that's where he'll do his private mass.
You guys might remember from our last session on papal elections, we talked about Casa Santa Marta as it's kind of the guest residence for the Vatican. So, for example, when there's a conclave to elect a new pope, that's where the cardinals stay. And Pope Francis, after he's elected, just chose to stay. There's a story, an anecdotal story, I don't know if it's true or not, but apparently he caused quite a splash when, after his election, he actually went down to the reception desk at Casa Santa Marta and tried to pay his bill on his own. So apparently,
Yeah.
that was...
Thank you. I'm done.
And then the other one in orange here is the Monastero Mater Ecclesiae. It's the Monastery of Mother Church. And that's actually where Pope Benedict is currently living, is in that one there. Up in the corner here, I think, is like the Vatican Observatory. So there's a lot of cool stuff in the gardens as well. This one here, this purple circle here, this is scandalous. This used to be the train station, but I don't think the trains go in and out of the Vatican City anymore. And it's now the like the Vatican, what do they call it? The market. Only they don't do food there. It's a big store, and because the Vatican is its own country, they don't have the tariffs on everything that comes in. And so everything that you buy here is like 30% cheaper than buying it out in the city, but you need access. And so the people who have access will go in there and buy stuff. And so the stuff that they sell in there is really, really nice stuff. And seeing it is somewhat scandalous when they're selling really nice ladies' handbags at a store in the Vatican. And you're like, what is going on here?
Who actually live inside the walls aside from the Pope and his household staff and whatnot?
I don't know.
Do the Swiss Guard live there?
The Swiss Guard live in their barracks, which is over here somewhere. Okay. We got a tour of the Swiss Guard barracks one time. So the Swiss Guard has a deal with the North American College. They don't have a lot of room to do their exercise. And so every now and then they will come up to use our field, which is quite nice. There's our field, to do a bunch of exercise and workout stuff.
Do they wear their big hats when they do that? And
No, they're dressed in shorts and t-shirts, the same as anybody else working out. But in return, they give each new class a tour of their barracks when we show up. So my first year, I got a tour of the Swiss Guard barracks. There's actually a gate right here to get into the Vatican, and that's where a lot of the people who work in the Vatican but live outside come and go through that gate there. And there's Swiss Guards at that gate, but they're wearing not their fancy red, blue, and yellow uniforms. They're wearing just an ordinary blue uniform, so they don't look fancy. So tourists don't stop to take pictures of them because that gate is very functional and people are coming and going all the time, driving in and out. And if people stopped there, it would create a huge mess.
And I don't even know today, the Swiss Guard, are they still all Swiss citizens, or?
They are.
They are. You have to be Swiss.
You have to be Swiss. You have to be over 5 feet 9 inches tall.
Huh.
There's some other rules that I don't remember, but yeah.
Interesting.
So we have a couple of other raised hands if you're ready for some more questions.
Yeah, bring them on.
The first one is Odie. At least it's listed on here as Odie's iPad, and I don't think we can see the video from Odie, but we should be able to hear once I unmute. So Odie, be ready for, oh, you unmuted yourself. Awesome.
Hi,
Perfect.
Odie.
Go ahead.
Hi, Father Hans, just a question. So you mentioned about Vatican being a country of its own. Is it Vatican or is it, yeah, Rome? Because I know that they have their own, what do you call that, local government or something, right?
Yeah, so the Pope is technically a head of state, the equivalent of our president, or I don't know, England's prime minister, whoever, like the head of the government. So the Pope is technically a head of state. The Vatican is its own country. It's entirely within the city of Rome, which is entirely the country of Italy. But within these walls, which includes St. Peter's Square also, is technically a different country than everything on the outside.
So they don't, you know how when you say different country, they're a country within the country of Italy.
Yeah, Vatican City State is actually considered its own entity, its own country, its own sovereign state. Yeah, no, it's, I don't think, you might know this, Father Hans, my understanding is, at least for the most part, if you're a tourist or whatever, you don't need to show a passport to come into the Vatican.
No, you wouldn't need to show a passport to go into the Vatican. But you also wouldn't be able to get anywhere other than the usual public areas, which is basically St. Peter's Square and St. Peter's Basilica and the museums. You wouldn't be able to get back here unless you know the right people.
So is the law of Italy applicable to the Vatican inside, or do they have their own?
I don't think it would be. I don't think Italy's laws would apply in the Vatican. I think the Vatican probably has their own laws.
Oh,
I
okay.
assume so.
They have their own judicial system, I know. Father Hans probably knows more about that than I do.
Nope.
And they do draw on help from, they do get help from, say, like Italian or Roman law enforcement, for example, for crowd control and security and things like that. But it's its own entity. It's kind of an interesting history. If you look at the history of the Papal States, at one time they were quite extensive. I mean, the Pope was very much a temporal ruler in addition to being sort of the spiritual head of the church. And I don't remember when the Italian Accords were that created the country of Italy, but to go from, you know, the ruler of these vast lands to go to, you know, this one, whatever that is, 1 square mile or whatever, must have been quite a come down, you know, for the popes. But I would say, I would argue for the benefit of the church, but some might argue differently. I don't know.
Right. So does that mean that if you want, I mean, how do you call the citizen inside the Vatican? Are they, like, when you want to apply to be a citizen inside the Vatican as versus a
I don't
citizen?
think that's possible. I don't know.
I do know they have their own passport. You might remember a few years ago, and I think I have this correct, Cardinal Law, when he was having some problems because of all the child abuse stuff, and he ended up fleeing the country. I believe he was actually given Vatican citizenship, and that allowed him to remain where he was, and also gave him some legal protections from being extradited, if I remember correctly. So I know
Okay.
you can get a Vatican citizenship. I don't know what's required. My guess is, for one thing, you probably have to work there, and I don't know if you have to actually have residence inside the walls or not. I don't know how that works.
Okay. Just curious. Thank you,
Yeah, it's a
Father.
good question.
Thank you, Dave.
Good question.
So the next question comes from, it looks like Maria and Ron. So I'll go ahead and unmute you. You've got a raised hand there. And you're on, Maria and Ron.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Maria. Hi, Ron.
He's not here.
Oh, hi, Maria.
So I have a question. Father Hans, I think, have you been to St. Alphonsus Church?
Does not ring a bell. Maybe. I went to a lot of churches while I was in Rome.
Yeah, okay. So, because I remembered, I didn't even remember that I went there until I was looking at, I had a little diary from a visit back in 2000, and it's actually where the original image of the Blessed Mother, the Perpetual Help, is located. So I don't know what is the significance and which Saint Alphonsus it is. Is it Saint Alphonsus, I think, Ligori?
Ligori, probably, but I don't know. I don't know.
Right. But anyway, that was just my only question. I don't even remember. It's been a while.
It's an interesting question, though. Maria, you know, so many of the images and whatnot, and Roman churches are just full of interesting stuff. The relics, for example, that are in Rome are quite fascinating. I don't know, Father Hans, is there a particular relic that you ever came across that just stood out to you as just completely crazy, or just who would ever think of turning that into a relic, or anything? Did it just kind of leave an impression on you?
Nothing springs to mind like super crazy, but I can show you here on this one. Right down here, there's a church called Santa Croce in Jerusalem, the Holy Cross in Jerusalem. And they actually have a ton of relics of like the Holy Cross and the tools that were used in Jesus's crucifixion. So I think they have some of the nails and just some other stuff from Jesus's crucifixion. Very, very cool. The other one that is a very cool relic is at Santa Maria Maggiore, St. Mary Major, and they have the crib that Jesus was laid in as a baby. And they'll bring it out on Christmas for people to pray before, the crib of Jesus.
Is St. Paul actually buried at St. Paul outside the walls?
He is.
Okay.
And can I have one more quick question, if it's okay?
Yeah, sure.
So if you didn't study in Rome, or I should say, you know, did it change your, I guess with, you know, Rome being, you're surrounded with all of this spiritual experience, I should say. So was it actually a different priesthood experience for you? If you didn't study there, what would it be like for you? So was it really helpful that you went there to go to school, or?
I would say it was different. So if I hadn't gone to Rome, I probably would have stayed at Mount Angel. Rome gives you a much better view of the universal church. It's like the church from around the world. You get to be in classes with people from all over the world. You know, pilgrims are coming from all over the place. You really get a much bigger view of the church as a whole. I think there's a trade-off though, because at Mount Angel, I think I would have gotten a better education just learning in English and being able to like go back and forth with the teachers talking about stuff. The style of teaching in the Roman universities is the professor talks and the students listen. And so, and there's no like writing papers or anything. It's all, for the most part, your entire grade is one oral exam at the end of the semester, which is why you could get away with the note system. That's why that worked. But I think that my education would probably have been better if I'd stayed here, theology-wise. My education in the universal church, my education in like knowing who the saints are and seeing where they're buried, very different.
Okay.
I don't know if I'd say better or worse, but very different.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
You can mute me.
All right. Our next question comes from Chris. She put something in the chat there. So Chris, if you'd like to give your question yourself, I'm gonna go ahead and unmute you. Oh, you unmuted yourself?
I did it myself. Hi, Father Hans. My question was, the senior mind. I just completely blanked on what I wrote down. Oh, what was your typical school day like?
Well, a typical school day, you'd have 4 hours of class in the morning usually. Yeah, okay, I'll walk you through a normal day for me. wake up around 5:30 in the morning, mass, well, morning prayer and mass, you had to be in the chapel by 6:15. You had 15, 20 minutes to grab a breakfast, and then you walked to school. Classes started at 8:30. Yeah, about 8:30 is when classes started. I feel like I'm getting this wrong. Yeah, that's correct. So 8:30, and then each class would last 45 minutes, and then you'd have a 15-minute break between them. And that gets you up to 12:15. And then at that point, you would normally walk back from school to the college for lunch. Lunch every day was sit-down 4-course meal because it's Italy. We would start with the salads, and then would come the pasta, and then would come the meat, and then would come dessert, which was usually fruit, but a couple times a week we would get gelato. And then if you had afternoon classes, you would walk back to the university and do a couple hours of class in the afternoon. Now, if you didn't want to walk home, you could also just go to the Casa Santa Maria, and they had a place in there where just a room where the seminarians could hang out, and you could go use their chapel and pray and do homework, whatever it might be, so that you didn't have to do all that walking back and forth and still be able to eat lunch. And then in the evening, we would have evening prayer together, 6:45, followed by dinner. And after dinner, various activities. If you were in choir, you had choir practice once a week. Thursday evenings, we always had our formation, so teaching us about how to be either good people or good priests or both. Monday evening, there was often a conference or something along those lines. Tuesday evenings were pretty wide open. Yeah. Usually in the afternoon. So afternoon classes would only be once or twice a week. So you'd usually have a solid block between lunch and evening prayer to take a nap. I mean, to study.
Did you have to wear your collar, or did you dress as civilians?
Yes. Was dressed wearing the collar almost every day, walking back and forth. We were required to wear collar in the morning, and then in the afternoon, evening, we could be in, they called it business casual, which was basically just, you know, nice pants and a collared shirt, but not a Roman collar, not a priest collar.
So
Speaking of, go ahead, sorry.
we just have another couple of hands raised. It looks like Vicky is going to be our next one. So unless, were you about to say something, Brett?
I just had another question, but it can wait. You can wait.
All right, then Vicky, I'm unmuting you and you can go ahead and give us yours.
Okay, hi Father Hans and
Hi,
Brett.
Vicky.
Thank you for giving us this wonderful knowing more Rome. I have a little silly question. Did you ever get tired of eating pasta and pizza?
Yes. Yes. As a matter of fact, I would almost never eat pizza by choice in Rome. The pizza over there is not like the pizza here, and our pizza is way better.
Oh,
The pasta over there is quite good, but even with that, I would get tired of it. If I was going to go out to eat, so I'll show you a couple of good places to eat. This street right here is called the Borgo Pio and has a number of really high quality restaurants on it.
okay.
This right over here in this area is a tiny little restaurant called Abruzzi, which makes the best carbonara and is also the home of the green sambuca.
Ooh, the green sambuca.
Ask Deacon Brett about their green sambuca, what makes it special.
Did I ever tell you guys my story about green sambuca?
No.
So I see if I can make this brief. I had a friend who was ordained years ago, and one of the priests who gave him a gift for his ordination, he gave him a bottle of green sambuca. So long story short, this same friend and I decided we were going to vacation together that summer. So we took we're going to drive from Indiana out here to Portland. And each night when we would stop along the way, we'd have a little nightcap with some Zambuca. And about, I don't know, 2 or 3 days into this, we just were commenting about how well we're sleeping, because I usually don't sleep well on the road. And he was saying, yeah, and I'm just having these really outrageous, vivid dreams. And I was like, thanks, I don't need to know anymore. But then anyway, also short, when we got back to school, he ran into that same priest and they started talking, and somehow that bottle of Zambuca came up again. And my friend, his name was Jim, was saying to this priest, he's saying, I don't have if it had anything to do with it or not, but every night before we went to bed, we had a little nightcap, and then we were just sleeping really well and having these kind of really, memorable dreams. And this priest just started chuckling to himself, and Jim said, what is it? And he said, oh yeah, it was definitely Zambuca. So apparently green Zambuca has codeine in it.
Oh my gosh.
And it's a controlled substance. It's technically, you can't bring it into the States. But my guess is most custom officials don't know it has codeine in it. So they just let you go through. And I'll just mention one last thing. Some years later, when I was back in Rome for a few days, we went to a restaurant, and I pulled the waiter aside and I said, would you guys have any green Zambuca that I could buy? And he just looked at me and he said, no. We don't have any green Zambuca. Zambuca's white. There's no such thing as, no. So we had a friend who was a lovely young woman. We put her up to asking, and the guy said, I'll tell you what, meet me out back after you're done. And he gave her 2 bottles. So you just have to be the right person, I guess.
If ever you visit Rome and you want to bring me back something, a bottle of green Sambuca is the top of that list. That is my favorite drink. Yeah. Yep. It's so good. And not just because of the way it makes you feel.
Okay, thank you, Father Hen.
Oh, other restaurants. So if I was going out to eat, I would go choose none of those places, and I would go to the Chinese restaurant along this road back here because I wanted Chinese food, and it was close to where I lived, and it was like a 15-minute walk just to get there. And
So like
Chinese food is wonderful.
So like a Chinatown close to you?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Absolutely. That's if I was going out to eat, I did not want more Italian food because Italian food is what we had in the house every day. And so
Okay.
plus the Italian food in the house was free, and I was like, why would I go pay for Italian food when I can have it for free? And that, better quality at the restaurant, so certainly that. But if I was going out or ordering in food, I wanted something that wasn't Italian. The pasta got old.
Wow. Thank you for your answer.
Good question, Vicky.
All right, our next hand raise is from David Wills, or at least I don't know if both David and Donna are there, but the username is just David Wills, so I'll unmute you. Oh, if it'll let me. There we go. And
hi, Father Hans.
Hello.
What did you do for fun besides the green Zambuca?
I did not do that all that often. Abruzzi's was too far away to go to all that often.
But I mean, when, like on the weekends, did you have the day off and you would go on a hike or something like this?
So once a month, they gave us travel weekends, and we were encouraged to leave the country, which was surprisingly easy. Europe is not that big a place. You could get on a flight out of Rome to just about anywhere for less than $200.
Hmm.
And so I went to England, France. I never made it to Spain. Portugal, I went to Fatima. Never made it to Lourdes. I made it to Ars, where St. John Vianney's from. Germany, Switzerland, some of my favorite stuff. I like the German style of being more than the Italian style of being. Sorry, Morella, I'm more German than Italian. And the Portland guys did a vacation to one of the Greek islands one time, and we were just there for a long weekend. Also, 10-day, 11-day trip to the Holy Land. Did a pilgrimage with the college for that. that was an amazing experience, but a whole nother story.
Where did you pick up your love of volleyball? Was that in seminary or was that before that?
That's a long time ago. My love of volleyball is from the time I was 13. However, I'll show you, here is what okay, so this is the North American College as seen from above. And you can see we have a very nice soccer field, and I played an awful lot of ultimate frisbee on that field. Not as much soccer, although I did play for our team for 1 year. The only organized soccer I've played in my life was international. So I've done the international soccer thing. I was playing as goalkeeper because I'm not a soccer player. I am a volleyball player, so I was used to, moving side to side pretty quick and trying to get my hands on stuff that people were trying to hit past me. Same general concept, I thought, and we needed a goalkeeper, so I tried that. In pool play, the Mexicans beat us 2-1 because they started fast, and even though we were the better team, we could only get 1 goal back after they were up 2-0. And then, so our first match, I didn't play. Somebody else was playing that one, and we won 5-0. We were a much better team. And our third match in pool play was against the team that eventually went on to win the entire tournament. And we played them to a 0-0 draw. And so that's the highlight of my international soccer career.
You were telling me something about the size of the field yesterday.
Oh, yeah. The field is not regulation size for a soccer field because apparently in Italy, or at least in Rome, if you have a regulation size soccer field, it becomes public domain to a certain extent, and you have to let other teams in to practice on it.
Oh.
So we deliberately built it small so that we wouldn't have to let anybody else in. Right here is a basketball court outdoors, and that's actually the new court. When I first showed up, there was an old court there. When they put the new court in, due to my influence, there's now the ability to set up a volleyball net there.
Oh, cool.
Myself and my friend of mine, he was really instrumental in the project to get the new court in. We're like, yes, we want to be able to play volleyball also. And then you can see a couple of tennis courts. This is a new gym with a lot of nice workout equipment in it. That was also built while I was there. This here is a 10-story, slightly separate tower thing that was built while I was there. The best view of the city of Rome is from up here on this patio on top of this building, because it's higher than everything else, and you can see St. Peter's Dome, and you can see the entire city of Rome, and it's amazing.
Wow.
This is our chapel over here. These are basically dormitory hallways. My first 3 years, I was living in a room over here on the 2nd floor. My 4th year, I was on the 1st floor in the middle. And my 5th year, I was down here so I could have my window open, and anytime I heard anything going on out on the field, I went out and joined.
Absolutely.
I didn't really study so much. I was more into the, hanging out with people.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let's just be honest.
Scandalous fun. Scandalous.
I know.
Thank you.
So did you get to fill up the volleyball court with sand when you wanted a beach game?
Nope, that was never a thing.
Cool.
All right, our next question looks like it's going to be coming from Vern and Marilyn right there. So I'm going to unmute you now, and you're on.
Hi, I'm wondering, when you were there for 5 years, how often did you come back to the Portland area or to Oregon during that time? And was it something like family came over and visited you? Did you have like a block of time off in the summer, or how did that all work?
Yeah, so they encourage guys to not go home the first summer. And to stay overseas and do either more language study or else some sort of service work. And so my first summer, I actually spent a month in Calcutta working with the Missionaries of Charity, which was absolutely amazing. I also took a couple weeks of vacation, and I don't recall what exactly I did with that. I think I was hanging out with friends in Italy. But that month in Calcutta was amazing. The only reasons that they would let you go home in the middle of the year were for like a wedding or a funeral of a family member. And so I was lucky. My sister got married towards the end of my first year. So I had that 2-year span where most guys wouldn't go home. I had a very long weekend that I got to go home for my sister's wedding. Like, I think that was in May. Then after those 2 years, you'd go home for the summer, come back for your third year. I did a pastoral year, so after my third year, I was home for another year before going back for my fourth year as a deacon. And then your fourth and fifth year as a deacon and as a priest, they'll let you go home for either Christmas or Easter to do ministry in a parish. My deacon year, I didn't. I actually went with a couple of friends down to southern Italy where they were doing some masses for a group of sisters down there that had invited them down. But my final year, I came home and helped out with Christmas masses over at Ascension Parish over by Mount Tabor here in Portland.
Okay.
But usually it was just summer, especially those first few years. And the first summer, you didn't get to go home for.
More of maybe
Thank you.
more of an esoteric question, but just speaking about travel and then even international travel, the Vatican, some of you may know the Vatican has a kind of a very highly respected diplomatic corps. But Hans, I'm just curious, while you're there studying, are they looking for people who may have a talent for that? Or is that, since they're drawing seminarians from all over the world, or is that not so much?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't know. They might have had their feelers out, but I never heard anything.
Okay.
Well, I'm not seeing any other questions right now, and that might be good timing since we're already at 4:22 p.m.
No, I got one last thing I got to share.
All right.
This is vitally important.
All right.
So I remember I was joining you for the session when you were talking about papal elections, and I was having fun watching the scene of the crowd in St. Peter's Square because I was looking for myself. I was in that crowd in St. Peter's Square when Pope Francis was elected. I was there. That was actually, I think, the fourth vote that they had taken. And we're like, no, it's probably not going to be until tomorrow. But it was the evening. So the morning sessions, I had been in class, wasn't able to be in the square. This was one of the evening sessions. And so we're like, yeah, let's just go down to the square. Maybe it'll happen. And the smoke comes up out of the chimney from the Sistine Chapel, and it comes out gray, and we're like, it's just gonna turn black. And then it turned white, and as you saw in the video, everyone starts screaming. We're like, Habemus Papam, we have a pope, yes! So we're screaming and cheering, and everybody's like rushing forward as close to the barricade as we can possibly be to find out what's going on and who's the pope. And I have to preface this. The cardinals who elect the Pope had come in like a week or two earlier. So they were doing all of the preparatory work, getting to know each other, because a lot of times they don't even know who each other are. And they want to sit down and talk to each other and say, here's what I'm thinking. Who are you? What are you thinking? And so on. So there's a lot of preparation work that went into it. But the American cardinals were all living in the North American College with us, and there's a bunch of rooms up on the 5th floor, the top floor, where they were all living. So we didn't necessarily see them all the time, but we knew they were there, and we were excited, and we would see them from time to time. And one time when I was walking up the stairs, I heard a voice from above say, "How you doing?" And I was like, "Not bad, how about yourself, Cardinal Dolan?" And Cardinal Dolan is a jovial guy who will come up to you and grab you by the neck and just like shake you a little bit and be like, "How you doing today?" You're like, "Please stop hurting me." No, he's a lot of fun. He's a really, really just nice, genuine person who will talk to you if you happen to run into each other on the staircase. But so all the cardinals are there, and we knew they were there, but then they all went into the conclave. So they're locked behind the doors for a couple days. We're excited, super excited. We've elected a pope. The white smoke has come out. We're all in the square waiting for about an hour for anybody to come out and say what's going on. That's about how long it took. And then whoever was doing the announcement came out on the balcony and said the words that he says, "Habemus Papam," I'm trying to remember the rest of the words. "Annuncio vobis gaudium magnum." So I announced to you all great joy. We have a pope. And so we're all cheering and yelling and screaming. And This cardinal had no idea how to work a crowd at all. Because while we're screaming and yelling and cheering, he told us who had been elected and what name he had taken. He didn't ask for any silence before doing that. There in the square, we had no idea. And I thought that I'd heard the word Franciscus, and I was like, did he say Francis? And the guys around me were like, I don't think so. I don't know what he said, but nobody's been named Pope Francis before. We had no idea who had been elected Pope. And then he like walked away. And the way we found out who was elected Pope was one of the guys in our group called America and asked his family, who did they elect Pope? Because they were watching it on TV and were able to find out. And so right there in St. Peter's Square, we found out by calling home.
Wow.
So then after Francis came out and he talked to us briefly, very briefly. And we were all very, excited for him. And then he did the thing which I don't think any Pope before him has done and asked us to pray for him before he blessed us. And the entire square was just dead silent. It's packed with like probably 500,000 people, silent, praying for him. And then he gave us his blessing, and then he went back inside, and we all, filtered back up to the college. And this is where it starts to get surreal, because the first thing we did up at the college was we went into the chapel and we prayed Te Deum. We gave glory to God for our new Pope. But then a couple hours later, after we've, given glory to God, we all came down to our lounge, and everybody had a couple of drinks, and some people probably had more than a couple of drinks, I'm just guessing. And towards about 11:30 at night, all of the American Cardinals, and I think there were 9 of them, came back up. And they came up in their little minibus thing, and they, pull around here, and they're entering through what's called the Red Room over here, through the door here. And so all of us seminarians lined the hallway outside the Red Room, and they came out the doors one at a time, and all of us are like cheering our cardinals. We're like, Cardinal Dolan, Cardinal Dolan. It's like, is this a baseball game? So we're just, super excited, and we're like, yeah, you guys did it. You elected the Pope. Very, very cool. Very not formal at all. We're just having a good time, and they were loving it, and we were loving it, and everyone was just super excited. So that's my story of Francis's election.
And it looks like there's one more question possibly from Mabel, if we are comfortable doing that with the last couple minutes.
Sure.
So let's see, Mabel, I'm unmuting you, and you're on if you still have that question.
Okay, yes, and just keep it brief, Father Hans, if we're running out of time. But my question is, how do you get to go to Rome? I mean, do you apply for it?
Ask the bishop.
Huh?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Really?
The bishop told me I was going. Well, the vocation director told me I was going.
Oh, okay. So is there any prestige associated with going to Rome additionally? Or?
Depends who you ask. A lot of people seem to think so. I don't think so. If I knew why I was sent, I might be able to say that there was prestige, but I don't know why.
Okay. Just obey, right? Just go. Okay.
Well, Father Dave says that we're sending you to Rome in the fall, so just be ready. Make sure your passport's ready to go.
Who's going to Rome?
You are.
You are. Father Dave said so.
You have to you to Rome. Yes.
It's part of your obedience.
Whoa. Then we'll have to have another session on Girl Group about my experiences, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I'm done.
Thank you.
All right, that's all we have from our participants, it looks like.
Well, everybody, I just want to say thank you. I found this very interesting, and just really appreciate your questions. I hope you found it worth your while as well. I would much rather be able to do this in person, but just given the restrictions that we have, I mean, this was not bad, not bad. Well done to all of you. A big thank you to Father Hans for being willing to share his stories and his little memories with us. And then big thank you to Allie as well for kind of organizing the Zoom session. And to all of you really for just taking the time out of your day. So we will go ahead and we'll post this. Allie, correct me if I'm wrong. We're going to post this on our website if you want to go back and listen to a particular piece of it or all of it. I don't have at this point any plans of continuing Grow Group into the summer, although if you have a particular topic that you think would be worthwhile, I'm open to that. We can kind of look at ways of doing that. Just let me know. In the meantime, I cannot wait to see you all again at church. Hopefully within the next couple months at the very least, we're going to be able to start getting back into the church building together. I know plans are being made, but we'll wait and see where things go. God bless you all. Have a good evening, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll unmute everybody in case you want to say goodbye.
Thank you, Father Hans.
Thank you, thank you.
Buddy.
Bye.
Good luck, Allie.
Bye bye.
This was good.
Thank you so
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Father Hans.
Bye.
My favorite deacon.
Who is that?
Cabello.
My favorite deacon in Holy Trinity.
Wow. I don't
Because
know.
he's the only one. Bye. Thank you. I'm gonna go.
Bye-bye, you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, Olivia. Bye.
I'll go ahead and end the meeting.
Thanks, Allie. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Allie.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Bye, Ryan.
Bye.